Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It has now been almost a couple of weeks since Liverpool won the European Cup in Madrid. I am never ever going to tire of saying that, and I'm sure that is how I'm going to start every single video this summer. But we've had plenty of transfer rumours over the last couple of weeks, all sorts of names flying about in the press. That's the kind of thing that's going to come with being European champions. You're going to get plenty of agents who try and big up their clients by saying, oh yeah, and Liverpool are interested in this guy, by the way. They're not going to say, oh, Man United want my player, because they're no one now, whereas Liverpool are European champions and potential challengers for the Premier League title and yet another Champions League next season. So there's been plenty of rumours going around, and it's hard to really sort the fact from the fiction, but there have been a few what feel like concrete stories coming out over the last few days, so I'm going to try and give as many of those to you as possible while sort of dissecting whether or not there's any truth behind them or whether it is just all talk and no action. So starting off with the news that came out this afternoon, what really does feel like a concrete link because of the sources and the feasibility of it, the possibility that Dejan Lovren may be willing to leave Liverpool this summer. It's been talked about in the Echo, and it was tweeted about by Paul Joyce, who, as we all know, is one of, if not the most reliable journalist on all matters Liverpool. When Joyce tweets something, it's come from the higher levels of the club. It's something they've sanctioned to go out as well, so they're very, very serious about whatever they're saying. And he essentially said that Liverpool are willing to consider bids of more than £25 million for Dejan Lovren. And there's a lot of talk about AC Milan also being very interested in buying him. Apparently there's been no contact from Milan yet, according to Joyce, although they are bringing in a new sporting director who should be taking the reins in the coming days. And we know that he rates Dejan Lovren very highly and would be willing to make Lovren his first big signing. It's sort of interesting how Italian football is actually quite removed from the rest of European football in terms of the way they do transfer dealings. Even the biggest clubs like Juventus absolutely love a free transfer, as we know when they took Emre Can. They've taken Aaron Ramsey from Arsenal as well, both of those players on frees. Most clubs in Italy don't tend to splash the cash that much, so £25 million relatively is actually a fair amount of money that they'd be willing to spend on a player. Now, personally, for me, I think it's quite odd news. It almost feels like an advert for the player. The fact that we know this has come from the Liverpool side of things. This isn't necessarily the player's entourage trying to put feelers out. This isn't AC Milan sort of trying to kind of send out a message that they're looking for a big signing centre-back. This is Liverpool basically issuing a come and get me plea for Dejan Lovren, and I think there's multiple factors for why that would be the case and why we'd want to offload him. I think the age thing we've got to take into account, the fact that he turns 30 this summer, and our owners have always been about resale value as much as they are about buying players who aren't going to cost as much as they maybe will further down the line. They like to get a bargain and they like to sell players for big money as well. We've seen it with people like Solanke going for 20 million quid, Jordan Ibe going for 50 million quid. What was it? Benteke and Sacco going for like 30 million each. We look to get the absolute maximum for a player. So when we can see that their value is going to start to depreciate more drastically than usual over the coming seasons, which I think is going to be the case with Dejan Lovren, because as he gets older, his value is just going to go down and down quicker and quicker as the seasons go on. And the fact that he's not going to be playing regular games next season as well, it's not like we can put him in the shop window, because he is just going to be a squad rotation centre-back. So he will probably sell for less than 25 million next summer. So if we've got a plan for what we're going to do this season with regards to our centre-back options, then I can see why we'd want to offload Dejan Lovren, although 25 million to me doesn't really feel like an Edwards fee. I think if he's looking to offload Dejan Lovren, he's going to big up the fact that Lovren was, pretty much the man of the match in the Champions League final last year, played a really good tournament up to that point, has been a solid backup for Liverpool this season and helped get Croatia to a World Cup final as well. He's going to be looking to push all those things and sort of put the age thing to one side for a little bit, and I can see us maybe pushing for somewhere up to 35 million quid for Dejan Lovren, which would obviously be a fantastic fee for the player. He's someone that's probably going to be the fourth choice centre-back next season. It would be an improvement on the 20 million quid we spent on him, and like I said, his fee is only going to go down between now and when we eventually choose to sell him. I do hope that there is some sort of plan in place. I think the club wouldn't go so public in terms of looking to offload the player without already, the wheels being in motion to get around the fact that we would have lost our fourth choice centre-back. I think Whether it's that we are looking to replace him, which would be a very good thing, I think I would like to see that happen. And the Echo has bigged that up a little bit as well. They said it would be likely that Liverpool would look for some sort of replacement for Dejan Lovren should he be moved on. I can probably see that being a younger, more versatile player as well, because we have kind of got a situation with our fullbacks in the defence where both of them are so brilliant that they are the ultimate first choice and no one's going to usurp them. But we need someone who's going to be able to take up their position should they get injured or need a rest. And that's unlikely to be someone who's exclusively a left back or a right back, because then their game time is going to be very limited. So I can see us going in for maybe a Nathan Ake type player, someone who can play left back as well, but is also capable of playing centre back and maybe even defensive midfield as well. And of course, he's young as well. We've got good negotiation links with Bournemouth, having done the Solanke deal and the Ibe deal, and even going as far back as the Brad Smith deal with them. So that's maybe a possibility. There's also the outside chance that Kiana Huerva maybe is even further along in his development than we initially thought. I think we know that Jurgen Klopp rates him highly and wants him in the first team setup as quickly as possible, because he can see him growing so quickly that he could become a first team option within the next year or two. I think it's maybe slightly too early to make him the fourth choice centre back, especially when you consider the amount of football that someone who plays that role will have to play. I think we'd almost want Huerva to be kind of a luxury academy player in a way, where if we want to throw him in a League Cup game or an FA Cup game to give him a bit of experience, that's fine. But if we don't want to, then we've got other players there who can take up the reins. And also, you've also got to just think about pre-season as well, and the fact that, you know, plenty of our players, Van Dijk was away with the Nations League, Joe Gomez was away with the Nations League as well. We've got so many players in our side who are busy over the summer and won't be ready for the right at the start of pre-season, and therefore we maybe just need a few more bodies in there other than people like Kiana Huerva, who are going to be able to take on that role and play centre-back in the friendlies, and then maybe even play in the first few games of the season. So I reckon it looks like this deal gets done. Now that the club, like I said, have gone public about it, it'd be a little bit embarrassing and wouldn't look great for Dejan Lovren if he stayed at the club, even though we've put out an advert saying we want him to go. Liverpool do things very efficiently now, and I feel like the Milan links wouldn't have been mentioned as well if there wasn't sort of an understanding in place that once this sporting director comes in and takes the reins, he will look to make Dejan Lovren his first signing. So I can see him going, which would be a little bit of a shame, but I would fully trust that Liverpool have a plan in place to make sure that this does not dent our squad options going into the new season. So another rumour that has resurfaced today is the name of Nabil Fekir, someone we are, of course, all familiar with. We don't need to go into all of that again. Everybody knows what happened last summer and how that tragically fell apart. Me included, you know, me being the person who put out a video saying Nabil Fekir signs for Liverpool with done deal in massive letters over the thumbnail. That was maybe not my finest hour in terms of trying to give you guys honest, legitimate transfer news, but we all thought it was going to get over the line, and then very suddenly the plug was pulled. It's, you know, widely regarded that it was his knees and an issue with the medical that led to the deal breaking down. No one really knows for sure, but there are reports emerging from France that Jurgen Klopp is still interested in the player, which of course doesn't surprise me. We will have done so much extensive research to kind of find out whether or not he's the perfect fit for Liverpool. So obviously he's the kind of player that Jurgen Klopp wants to bring in. So it's no surprise that he would still like to have him at the club. It's reported that Jurgen Klopp would not be willing to deal at the same kind of high price that we saw last season in the transfer window as well, when it was talked about being about 50 million quid. Obviously with Fekir now having only 1 year left on his contract and kind of making it pretty clear that he probably wants to leave Lyon and that Liverpool is really his preferred destination, it's looking more likely that the fee would be somewhere around 15 million quid. Now, with the whole medical issue, I can see that kind of being a baseline figure, and then there maybe being a potential of up to 5 to even 10 million pounds of add-ons that are kind of more appearance-based than maybe goal-based or trophy-based or anything like that. Simply saying, if Fekir stays fit for this long, we'll give you an extra 5 million quid or something like that, or an extra 10 million quid should he stay fit and he wins the quadruple with Liverpool or anything like that. So it's not a huge surprise that this one has come up again. I think Olas, the Lyon sporting director, is also very keen to offload Fekir, like I said, because he wants to get the money now rather than leave him to walk away on a free next summer. So I can see why the reports coming out of France rather than coming out of Liverpool. I think with what happened last summer, we will be very, very careful with how we do it. It will probably be similar to the Van Dijk deal, where absolutely no one knew about it until after it actually happened, because there was previous with the whole situation and how it previously fell apart, and therefore Liverpool want to just save their face and make sure that they don't get made to look silly again, because that wasn't exactly an ideal moment in the transfer window last summer. In a window that otherwise went pretty much perfectly for Liverpool, to have something which made us look a bit silly wasn't ideal. So I can see why it's been mentioned in the French press and not the English press. As to whether these links are actually concrete, originally they were reported to come from Foot OL, or however you're supposed to pronounce that, which is a French newspaper, which is apparently very reliable, so everyone got very excited. But it turns out that they were essentially reproducing a story that came from Le Progrès, or however it's pronounced, which is a Lyon-based sports newspaper. So again, no surprise there that this story is coming out of Lyon rather than anywhere else. It's coming from the club, I think, rather than the player as well, which of course makes it slightly more interesting as well. Apparently, we don't really know whether Le Progrès are reliable. I don't know whether this is the kind of situation where we get it a lot in England, where BBC Sport, very, very reliable, only report concrete news, but they do also have a gossip page where they will just regurgitate any old trash that is mildly click-worthy. So who knows whether this is just their gossip page or whether they are reproducing this because it's a genuine story that has legs. It remains to be seen, and I'm sure this is a saga that will rumble on all summer regardless, because even if Liverpool have no interest and they just go deny, which I'm sure they will do regardless of the situation, Jean-Michel Aulas wants rid of this player. He wants the money for him, so he is just going to keep pushing this story all summer, whether it is to try and entice Liverpool back in or to try and entice other potential buyers in who are looking to get in before Liverpool do, remains to be seen. But there's also an interesting part of the report that says that the friendly between Liverpool and Lyon on the 31st of July is key in the deal. I can't quite see why, because I don't know how exactly that works. Is it, the full-time whistle blows and Fekir rips his kit off and puts a Liverpool kit on or something like that? Or maybe switches teams at half-time? Or maybe it's to do with the fact that the sporting directors of both clubs are going to be in the same place at the same time. I mean, whatever happens, it's going to be a weird game, because should Fekir play, which is quite likely because he's been doing Euro qualifiers with France, but he will probably have most of the pre-season with Lyon. If he plays for Lyon, it's going to be a bit of a weird atmosphere there as well. I don't know how exactly that's supposed to go down, because obviously it just brings up everything that happened last summer. So there's something going on there, I think. There's something between the clubs. There's some sort of understanding, some sort of dialogue that I think is probably still going on. And it really wouldn't surprise me, given Liverpool's nous in terms of these kind of deals, given what we did with Virgil van Dijk and Naby Keita, if what essentially happened was last summer, we said, okay, we're not going to buy him this summer, but if no one wants him, we will happily come in and take him for a cut price fee the year afterwards because of the single year left on his contract. So, don't get your hopes up about this, I think, is the right thing to say. Don't suddenly go shouting from the rooftops that Nabil Fekir to Liverpool is a done deal like I did. But certainly keep an eye on it, because it's one that's not going to go away by any stretch of the imagination. So, other little bits of news that have been coming out over the last few days. There's been a little bit of stuff going on with Nicolas Pepe, or Nicolas Pepe, however you want to say it. Mohamed Bouhafsi of RMC Sport in France has been doubling down on his idea that Liverpool are definitely involved in negotiations for the player. He's even posted a little selfie with Nicolas Pepe to be like, look, this is my source right here. People have been like, oh, what's your source? Oh, you're making it up. He's like, no, I'm not. I've been talking to the guy. And Nicolas Pepe himself has also liked some tweets that say that Liverpool are in for him. We all know that that's always very, very speculative when it's kind of that stuff that's being touted as a rumour, that's being touted as a link between Liverpool and the player and stuff like that. But again, it feels like there's something there. But Hafsi has doubled down despite the fact that the Echo have denied it. The Echo denying us being linked to a player is always a little bit of an iffy one, because sometimes they are just a bit of a mouthpiece for the club. And again, it's this idea that Liverpool are saving face and they don't want to get stung, because Bayern Munich are also in for the player, and a lot of that depends on whether Sané goes to Bayern Munich. If he goes, Pepe won't go to Bayern, but if Sané doesn't go to Bayern, there's much more potential for first team football for him there, because Bayern are getting rid of Robbery and Ribbon, so Pepe might look at that. Did I say Ribbon? Ribbery. I said robbery and ribbon, didn't I? Robben and Ribbery, they're going, so there's more potential for first team football there, but obviously Liverpool is the more attractive prospect with the fact that we play such beautiful football, and we are, of course, the champions of Europe, and will probably challenge for both that and the Premier League title next season. So Another one that looks like it's going to rumble on, I think because perhaps he is a respected journalist, he's definitely right in terms of his side of things. Like, it wouldn't surprise me that Liverpool have made contact. Whether or not those are hard negotiations or soft negotiations, again, the catchphrase of this video, it remains to be seen. But once again, the other catchphrase, keep an eye on it. So other news, Pep Guardiola is reportedly, according to the Daily Star, considering taking a sabbatical from football altogether at the end of this coming season if Manchester City win the Champions League. Whether or not that's because City would potentially be banned from the Champions League the season after that and therefore he just cannot be bothered, or whether it is because he is absolutely knackered of managing Manchester City and having to deal with the endless title race with Liverpool, again, remains to be seen. But I think that will probably be a good thing. The annoying thing is that I was almost looking at it and thinking, well, I can almost take us not winning the title next season if it means Guardiola goes at the end. But then I would say, I can take us not winning the title if we win the European Cup again. But City have got to win the European Cup for Pep Guardiola to go. So in an ideal scenario, we win the double and Pep Guardiola goes, you know what, I'm just knackered. I can't deal with this anymore. Jurgen Klopp, you win the war of attrition. I'm going to sack this whole footy lark off for a year and you can just win the league for the next couple of seasons. I mean, obviously as Liverpool fans, it's great to have this super intense title race between two brilliant teams. But if Pep Guardiola could go and we could just comfortably win the league by 10 or 15 points for a couple of seasons, that would also be absolutely fantastic. And I think all of us would love it. So Pep, you know what? This season, the Champions League is yours. Yeah, have it, fine, enjoy it, then go. Everybody's happy. City have got the trophy they've always wanted. Liverpool can go easy for the league for a couple of seasons and everyone comes away winners. You know, obviously, this is from the Daily Star. I don't know what their links to Pep Guardiola are. Maybe they're just trying to make up a story because it sounds plausible as well. You know, Guardiola doesn't tend to spend more than 3 or 4 years at a club, and if he wins the Champions League, there's nowhere for him to really go with Manchester City. But again, remains to be seen. Keep an eye on it. All of the above. It is just an interesting story. Let me know what you think about it and whether you'd rather Pep stayed and that we had this constant battle between the two teams, or whether you'd rather Pep went and they got, I don't know, Arteta in as manager or something like that and things became a little bit more easy for Liverpool in the league. I can kind of guess what most people's answers are going to be. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the news. We've also got the Premier League fixtures coming out at 9 a.m. tomorrow, which is, as always, very exciting, even though it is just a list of teams in a randomised order, each one appearing twice, once with an H and once with an A next to them. But with the season still fairly far away, it's all we have at the time, and of course our heads are going to run away and we're all going to imagine, you know, the exact scenario in which Liverpool lift the Premier League title on the last day of the season. Hopefully it's at home against Everton. That's what I want to see. Let me know what you guys want to see in the fixtures down in the comments below. Sadly, I'm going to be out all day, so I probably won't do an analysis of the fixtures, but if they're super duper interesting for whatever reason, then I might do a little bit of a video on that. But yeah, let me know what you guys want for the first game. When do you want City? When do you want United? When do you want Everton? What do you want on the last day of the season? Do you want big chunks of difficult games in one go, or do you want them spread out? Do you want the December period to be hectic, bearing in mind we've got the Club World Cup as well to deal with there, or do you want it to be nice and calm? Let me know down in the comments below. Apart from that, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days, weeks, months, years, whatever. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back soon when there's more news to talk about. Until then, bye for now.